What's going on, everybody? Welcome and welcome back to the channel. This is Shopper Chop, the show where I react to the latest and the greatest when it comes to all things music. I'm your host, Oakland Jonas Galloway, and without any further ado, let's get into what's been keeping my ear to the streets. Alright, everybody, so starting off our show today, I want to talk about the rapper Mystikal, and he's recently pled guilty to a third-degree charge stemming from a 2022 arrest. Now, I'm going to have the full article linked in the description box, but I want to take a second and read just a few lines from the article, if that's okay. This article was posted by The Guardian on Tuesday, March 17th, 2026, and it reads, the U.S. rapper Mystikal on Tuesday pleaded guilty to third-degree rape in connection with a case that led to his arrest in 2022. Mystikal, whose given name is Michael Tyler, faces up to 20 years in prison after pleading guilty in a state courthouse outside Baton Rouge, Louisiana, according to reports from local news outlets WBRZ and WAFB. The 55-year-old Tyler had originally been charged with more serious offenses to which he pleaded not guilty, including first-degree rape, simple robbery, domestic abuse battery, and false imprisonment. Tyler's guilty plea was reportedly part of a deal that reduced the overall severity of the case against him. If convicted as originally charged, he would have faced a mandatory life imprisonment. Danger! Sorry, I couldn't help it. I'm just gonna say that I'm not surprised. Not specifically because of anything having to do with him specifically or this person, but just because of the culture of hip hop itself, and specifically 90s hip hop culture and early 2000s hip hop culture. It just, I'm going to say a quiet part out loud that is a conversation that isn't had enough, but I'm hoping that me opening it up here will at least inspire a conversation within my comment section, and maybe that will spread within, the group chat somewhere, right? Listen, I don't think it's a secret, but I think it's something that's not talked about enough, that hip hop was built on rape culture, and it was built on misogyny, and it was built on women being treated as objects, right? From the lyrics in songs to the presentation of women in music videos to the way that we would hear women being treated in the relationships of these rappers later on in documentaries, court cases, interviews, etc. Right? And this also goes into what I like to call the identity blurring of people who become famous after being indoctrinated to poverty, and how that access to what some people would describe as privilege, that can unlock some really wild shit in people, right? I think that the general hip hop consuming public tends to make excuses for the shortcomings of the representations and stereotypes that 90s and especially 2000s hip hop has overcast on us, not only in the genre, but the general black community as an overall result of that. What I mean by that is we can even go back to examples like the R. Kelly episode in the Boondocks, and how that illustrates the way that people still listen to R. Kelly unabashedly, regardless of the way that it's been proven how he's treated women. We've had this conversation of separating the artist from the art and where people draw those lines and the boundaries that some people draw at the music being good enough to justify certain behaviors that men have been proven to inflict on not only women, but children, other people. It's very interesting because it's something that, I thought that we would grow from, especially in this socially aware, some people would say woke SJW culture that has taken over Gen Z. And it just seems like there's this there's this box that the hip hop community is stuck in that hasn't grown past the objectification of women or the personification of negative stereotypes that were projected on us by greater society. And even higher than that, grows to inflict them on our own community and has become not even people who have this reclamative ownership over negative stereotypes, but now it becomes a mission for them to inflict those stereotypes on other people as a projective rebellion. It's something that is really sad to me because no one in our community at greater platform or greater acknowledgement wants to truly take responsibility for it. You know, I've seen a couple people here and there kind of speak on it or acknowledge it when it comes to certain things and certain cases that have come about within the community or within the hip hop culture. But I've never seen this truly be a culture wide conversation that is something that needs to be spoken about, right? I've personally had this conversation for years, even down to the smallest nuances of using the N word in music that you want to sell to white people and then try to police when they use that word that you sold to them in that music at your concerts that they purchase tickets to be at. Do you get what I mean? I think at some point we have to take stock of the fact that hip hop has not, to its fullest potential, taken accountability of the shortcomings that need to be fixed within the community that have plagued our community for years, right? And I know that there's a conversation that has been had about, lyrics being used to vilify or to incriminate artists, specifically in the hip hop community and not other communities. However, there has to be some sort of conversation about the culture that we're raised in being an influence to who we become, and how just as much we praise hip hop and positively acknowledge hip hop for influence, we should also be able to recognize and acknowledge the shortcomings and the negative things that come with hip hop. There has to be a conversation about that because, at the highest level of that conversation is rap culture, right? Somewhere in the middle of that conversation is stripper culture and this reclamative nature behind celebrating strippers, right? And then at the bottom of that is things that are important but not necessarily tangibly necessary to talk about in the immediate interim, like using the N word. But the black community, and on a smaller scale, the hip hop community within it, does need to have a conversation about the fact that we are one of the only communities, and it's because we are the greatest minority that is attacked by not only the Caucasian community, but every community outside of it that is non black. We need to have a conversation about we need to have a talk about the practice of taking the most negative aspects of our culture and trying to flip them into positive things that we can claim for our own and learn to innovate new culture that is based in actual positivity for the culture. I want to lighten this up a little bit before we close out what's been keeping my ear to the streets. And I want to talk about Cardi B for just a second, who, while she's on her sold out Little Miss Drama tour, she's announced that she has invested in the zero sugar soda Zevia, right? And she's kind of expanded her brand to even more things that she not only endorses, but she has equity and ownership in, which is at this point nothing short of what I expect for Cardi B, right? I think that this is what I was expecting when she announced this album. I think when we got this tour, when we got this album, I think I was expecting something to be announced in the form of a product. And I'm not talking about merch or variants of the album or, physical copies or vinyls. I'm talking about a product in the form of whip shots, in the form of a brand partnership like she had with Reebok. This is what I was waiting on, right? Because, like I've said for years, Cardi makes music to make business moves. And at this point, I think we all just need to be glad that the music is good and that the business moves are smart. Because I think Whip Shots was an amazing investment for her. You know, all the other things she's doing, whatever it is she's doing, that deal with Reebok that she had for years, I think now that's over, but great deal for that. I think this is brilliant. I'm hoping that this is her Celsius, right? Kind of how Kamorley invested in Celsius, and we actually didn't know anything about it until she told us years later. But I'm hoping that this is as big for her as Celsius is for Kamorley, right? I'm hoping that now the pressure for her to release music will also subside. And from here on out, she can just enjoy dropping music whenever she feels like it, and we can just enjoy whatever she gets from her from now on. Because I think the issue with Cardi B when it came to music is that she announced the album and then it just never came out all those years, all those years, all those years until it came out. Right? So my advice is, at this point, now that you've gotten through this second album, Cardi B, do not ever announce another project again. My advice to Cardi B at this point is that now that she's gotten through this second album and she's on this tour and everybody is happy at this point, do not ever announce another project again. I say you focus on your businesses, you focus on being a mom, you focus on doing all of the things that you want to do that make you money without attaching the level of pressure that comes with releasing an album, right? If you want to make music, make music. Drop something if you want to, drop a song here, drop a single there, fine. We're fine with that, right? But don't announce something that is now going to take another 10 years for you to produce, and then we're going to have this conversation all over again, because I personally don't believe that the people are going to wait around that long again. Like, just girl, just drop music when you feel like it and let it go. That's all I've got today for what's been keeping my ear to the streets. Let me know what you think about what's going on with Mystikal. Let me know what you think about the broader conversation that I tried to have when it comes to his case. And let me know what you think about Cardi's investment in the zero drink soda Zevia, excuse me. Let me know if you think that it was a smart business decision for her. Let me know if you think she called Kamorley and asked her about this decision before she invested in it. And let me know if you've heard of this drink, and if not, if you know where I can get it so I can try it. Let's move on to the shops. So for shops this week, I want to talk first about Duran Bernard and his new single that he just released called Wild Ride, right? And it is featuring James Fauntleroy. And while I appreciate everything that this original release has brought, it is incredible music. We're going to get into that. But I want to start off my review of this song by asking for a remix with Khalid. I think that you doing a remix with Khalid would be so sonically impressive, and it would be so next level to what you and James created with this original record, right? Speaking of what you're doing sonically, this sounds like a more sonically assured Duran, right? I wanted to start this at first by saying that it sounded mature, but that doesn't even describe it for me because his music has always sounded mature and wise and well researched and well informed and well inspired, right? I think that now it just sounds more rooted in a more assured sense of who Duran Bernard is as a person and as an artist overall. I wonder if this is a hint at him evolving into a less animated but still creatively boundary pushing R&B, right? Because if you listen to the song, if you look at the video, it's very pulled back. It's very, well, not even very pulled back, but it's a very chill and very subdued type of groove set aside from what we're typically used to in the more commercial releases when it comes to Duran Bernard. I feel like personally, Duran has a special space in R&B as a gay man that I'm interested and excited to see grow. And I have a couple reasons why. I feel like Duran could grow into a space in male R&B that is bigger than his sexuality, and I really feel like we need that. I feel like we genuinely need that. Khalid can still grow into that space, but I feel like he's just starting to release music as an out gay man, and that is directly inspired or representative of his gay lifestyle. So I feel like he has to kind of have his time in the Butch Queen sun and kind of live his life and have his fun and experiment and explore and go and do all of the things that gay men do when we first come out and explore the world and do all of the things, right? And that's perfectly fine. I feel like that's what's going to get him to the level that's going to create the um sonically assured music that we're going to get from him when he has gone through all of those things and then he settles into the person that he wants to be for the next 50 years, right? With Duran always being out from the start of his career, to my knowledge, I think that he has naturally presented from that place. And while we have kind of seen another side of that evolution from him as a gay man through his musical journey, I think that I'm excited to see the eccentricities of his music be ingested as more than just him queening on a record, right? I think with him blending this style of doing music with the eccentricities that we're known with Duran Bernard for, I think it's going to lean into a more representative lane of a prince and a disciple of his lineage than a gay man who makes really great gay music. I think he is at the point of truly transcending that. And I'm really excited to see where he takes it from here. With that being said, bringing it back to the gays, I need this on a TV show immediately. I don't specifically need this on a gay TV show, but this does feel like something I could have heard on Queer as Folk growing up. Um, this feels like something I definitely could have heard in a club. This could have been, well, I don't know if it could have been played in Babylon specifically. If you know, you know. But it feels like I could have heard it on Queer as Folk growing up in the background somewhere. But moving on in my shops, I want to talk about Latto and her newly released single and video, Business and Personal, and how this is the side of Latto that I've always loved, right? From No Hook to Georgia Peach and now Business and Personal, she always has this way of blending personal content with her southern edge. And in my opinion, that will always be Latto at her best. I think she's finally found an elevated version of her sound that she blew up with on Bitch from the South. And it's exciting to see because, for example, one with the beat switch and the whole going from one type of song to another one that we got introduced to from her on Big Mama, to another side of that being this elevated female trap sound that kind of is, it feels like a woman's counterpart to like a Jeezy or a Gucci or a T.I., right? It's very Atlanta, it's very where she's from, but it just feels like an elevated version of what she's been doing her entire career and the sound that really is desired from her core fans and that kind of took her to the mainstream audience, right? I feel like Lotto had success with Big Energy and that was great, but she's not an artist that ever needs to do a pop type of record. She doesn't need to chase a pop bag, and while I'm sure the pop bag is lovely, don't get me wrong, I just feel like her doing pop records is never going to feel genuine from a Lotto. And so while we respect her acknowledging that it was a cash grab and her just doing what she needed to do to go get her coin, I feel like if she put as much focus as she did into Big Energy, specifically into perfecting her records that are truly representative of her and her sound, she'll be just fine at all times. I feel like the pendulum in music is swinging back towards people having these individualistic sounds and having these signature ways of presenting their music that is always consistent in the way that there's a through line of the artist's individuality, but there is growth and elevation as the artist grows and elevates, right? I feel like that's coming back to music and that desire is coming back to music. Um, and I think that she is one of the artists that can kind of the mark the threshold of that. She can kind of plant a flag, excuse me, plant a flag in that because she is somebody who has a very signature sound. I know Lotto when I hear it, and I specifically go and listen to Lotto for Lotto's sound. I truly saw the solidification of that on her last album, Sugar Honey Iced Tea, and how that felt like a true Lotto album. That felt like a body of work that was specifically from her. And it was crafted by her mind, her thought process from start to finish. It felt like she had her hand in every piece of it. And I want that to continue with every project that she has going forward. And if she keeps making music like Business and Personal, I am always going to be satisfied when it comes to Lotto. Chef's kiss. So, closing out our shops this week, I want to have a conversation about the female artist Yseult and her new single Freak, right? And I wanted to talk about how blown away I was when I discovered this song and this video because this was the first time I've seen a female modern take on New Jack Swing, right? And then it kind of left me with a thought. Other than Janet Jackson, we didn't really see women thrive in New Jack Swing. To my knowledge, Janet Jackson was the only artist that really took the New Jack Swing sound and propelled it in a way that moved the needle in her career, right? At that point in time, we mostly saw women gain proximity to fame or success on the house wave or utilizing the house sound, right? And vice versa. Because on the flip side of that, I can't really hear a lot of men or recall a lot of men gaining prominence in the house sound. We mostly saw men utilizing New Jack Swing, right? So I wondered if that was regulated through the patriarchy of the 80s and 90s music industry and how it was structured at the time, and if that was something that was implemented within how music was curated, that men did New Jack Swing and women did house music, and Janet doing it was just kind of a rebellion to music, or if that was just something that was just kind of commonplace and just something that was just chosen by the artist. Drop down in the comments and let me know if you have any kind of intel on that, because that's something that I'm genuinely curious about. Say all of that to say, Yseult, you have a slam dunk with this record. It is incredible. It's beautifully sounding. I love your voice. I love the visuals. And with that being said, I have a question. I wonder if her singing about being a freak and her sexuality will be respected more because she's covered up in the video, right? I sometimes try to figure out where the breakdown in double standards are when it comes to the music industry, right? And in this case, specifically why men are allowed to make music about treating women like objects and are able to be reproduced at a rate that is a dime a dozen, yet women aren't allowed to make music about owning their sexuality and the autonomy of enjoying sex for themselves without being reduced to labels like stripper music. You know what I mean? I always wonder where that double standard divides, because it seems like men are allowed to make music about objectifying women, and that's okay. Men making music from a misogynistic perspective is perfectly fine, but women making music from a place of autonomy and ownership and from celebrating their womanhood is now vulgar? Hmm, interesting. All of that being said, I'm thoroughly impressed with the song, and I'm excited to dive back into her catalog and see if this is a prominence in her music, if this New Jack Swing vibe is a prominence in her catalog and what she does, or if this is just something that she was doing and she kind of just has a wave in with this song and she does other things. She has a Doechii spirit that I'm excited to see simmer in a way that I don't necessarily see her making music that is remnant of Doechii, or I see her as any type of Doechii clone. What I'm saying is I see her personally popping for doing black ass music that people aren't used to hearing right now, and then taking over the music industry in the way that Doechii did, right? I feel like Doechii became popular for making music that was still black as hell, but wasn't music that was prominent to black audiences when she released it. Yet it was able to catch the ears of the black audience and grow from there. right? I hope she has that trajectory or even better, but I hope that people grow to recognize her for that first. Alrighty, that has been my shops for the week. Drop down in the comments and let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have any suggestions about some of the things that you thought that I should be covering for the week when it comes to recent releases in music. I'm going to take a quick break, and then when I come back, we're going to get into the chops. Stay tuned. All right, fam. So when it comes to chops this week, I want to start off this round of chops with one of the most reluctant chops I feel like I'm ever going to give because I love this artist, but I have reasons for why I'm about to say what I'm about to say, right? Coco Jones, Luvagirl. Um, let's talk. So, the reason why this song is a chop for me this week, I can't call the song bad, right? I refuse to call this song bad because it isn't a terrible song. But to me, it seems like consistently there is never enough effort put into Coco Jones's mid-tempo records, and I feel like that has something to do with why they don't connect to her audience, right? Coco Jones's niche is making classic R&B translate with modern production styles, right? It seems like she has found a way of sampling classic R&B records in a way that doesn't feel repetitive or doesn't feel like a distraction from her talent or from her abilities as a creative and as an artist, right? And I feel like the reason why her mid tempos don't connect as well is because it feels like the productions on her mid tempos all sound basic and less than thought out. It almost feels like her team relies on the fact that the BPM is higher on those records to sell the songs. And there seems to always feel like there's more that could be put into the productions to make them stick more, right? And I'm thinking about examples like Crazy for Me. I'm thinking about examples like Sweep It Up. And now this one. It just, even on this record, it feels like the production is louder than Coco's vocals. It feels like the production is overpowering her vocals. It feels like her mic is almost turned down a little bit and she's letting the music speak for her and she's just kind of singing. It just feels like there's never the amount of thought put into her mid tempos and up tempo records as it is her ballads, because her ballads have to connect, right? Her ballads are where she shines. Her ballads are where the musicality is always the most crisp. And it's always, we get her best work vocally and production wise. It always all comes together on her ballads, but it seems to never all come together on her mid tempos. And that leaves me with the question why. As much as I like Crazy for Me, as much as I like Sweep It Up, those songs aren't chops for me, but I feel the same way about those songs that I do about Love a Girl. And now this is the third song that I have that feeling about, and it is a chop for me. Like I said, the song isn't bad, but it is not a song I want to listen to. Can somebody call Dark Child, please? Somebody on the team, somebody on Coco's team, please call Dark Child immediately. I need you to call that man immediately because I think your voice with his productions would be, I don't want to say a second coming of Brandy because Brandy is still here and she is still eating and she is still slaying, but you could present a Brandy type of renaissance to music with his productions. And I feel like your voice needs Dark Child. Please call that man. Okay, so last on my chops this week, I want to talk about Shaggy, and I want to talk about the song that he just recently put out featuring Robin Thicke called Looking Lovely. And while I can appreciate the Lovely Day sample, I appreciate it. I just wish there was more done with the sample than simply utilizing the sample. I wish there was some sort of tweak to it that just gave it a different type of energy, because for some reason the way the sample was just utilized on the record kind of reduces the song to sounding like that Southern line dance music that's really popular right now. And while there's not an extreme amount wrong with that, because people are finding success with those records, Kaya just put out a record like that recently. It's just not my type of music, and it's not music that I personally want to listen to. It's fun to watch my family cut up to that when we drunk at the family function, but that's not something I want to bump in my car. You know what I'm saying? And that's just not something that I ever expected from an artist like Shaggy. So it kind of gagged me a little bit. It kind of gagged me just a little bit. I just feel like songs like that, or going in that direction, it kind of leaves the potential of the song's growth as limited, right? Unless it's like an anomaly record that is just so good that it just transcends past that niche culture of people who love that music and kind of crosses over, right? I just think that more could have been done with the sample to expand its reach, but maybe that wasn't the intention, right? Maybe this was the intention, for it to resemble that Southern line dance music, that family function music, right? Maybe that was the whole point of this. And I may have to modify my thought process, that just because people come back into music doesn't necessarily mean that they are chasing mainstream success or general public appeal, right? I feel like some people just want to be in the game and not necessarily want to be in the starting five. And that's okay. And I can actually kind of relate to that in a way. I think with me and this record personally, I don't like that style of music. I don't like that genre and what that is. So for me, this just didn't translate for me. But while I appreciate Shaggy is out here doing his thing and he's putting out music, I just wish that there was more of a personal touch that he had on this music. I don't know what exactly I was looking for him to sprinkle in on this to make it feel more personal on the production side, but I don't know. It just feel like he made the best of being able to clear the sample and left it there. All right, everybody, that has been Shopper Chop this week. Let me know what you guys think about my shops. Let me know what you think about the chops. Let me know what you think about what's been keeping my ear to the streets. And like I tell you guys every episode, drop that in the comments and make your voices heard, because your engagement is everything that I look forward to when it comes to dropping these shows. I want to hear exactly what you guys think, what you think I should be covering, what you thought about what I covered. And yeah, let's make the comment section our place to kick it. I always want to talk to you guys, and I always want to hear what you have to say. So, with that being said, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you can catch this show when it drops every Monday, and The Fourth Wall when it drops every Wednesday. I am your host, Oakland Jonas Galloway, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.